All right. Well, I'm excited about our opportunity to meet today. Today, we're talking about how to develop emotional intelligence in leaders. We've been talking about emotional intelligence for the last few weeks. This is probably going to be the last week that we're really talking about it. And I want to wrap up on how do we actually improve in this area? How do we become these emotionally intelligent leaders? And how do we, the other piece of what we do is how do we help others become emotionally intelligent leaders? Again, I want to welcome you to our weekly Lunch and Learn, where we gather together for leaders and those who want to be. We have discussion. I'm going to ask questions. I love to have people give their input. And I'm excited because next week we're actually going to have a guest. I'm going to have an interview time with Angie Gray, and I'll talk a little bit more about her at the end. Yes.
Chat we can't get into, so I don't know if it has to be enabled. Whatever, it just says chat previews, so I wasn't able to get into chat.
Oh.
I had to double click on it.
Oh, okay.
Did that work?
Oh, yes.
All right.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I know, I hit it too, and I'm like, wow, what's going on? But then I double clicked and it opened.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Good. Well, again, just a quick recap, defining what emotional intelligence is. It's the ability to understand and manage one's emotions and effectively navigate interpersonal relationships. It is so critical in everything that we do that we have a high emotional intelligence. People have become much more expressive of their emotions. People have an expectation that others are going to know what they're feeling and meet them based on what they're feeling. And so it's important that we have an understanding of this so that we can navigate relationships as we continue to go forward. And again, just a reminder from some of our previous discussions, there's been a shift in the leadership paradigms. We've talked about this. Anybody who spends any time with me hears me talk about the fact that gone are the days where a leader sits in a room and kind of is back behind a screen and manages things and kind of moves people around and moves systems around. Leadership today is interactive. It is working with people. It's out walking on the floor. It's doing the work with them. The shift in the leadership paradigm towards a more emotionally intelligent approach, it reflects this growing recognition of the significant impact emotions have on workplace dynamics, team performance, and overall organizational success. Traditional leadership models often, they prioritize technical skills, task-oriented goals, and hierarchical structures. Can't say that word right. However, now what we're seeing is organizations, they're becoming increasingly more complex, they're diverse, there's rapid change, and so there's a high need for leaders who can navigate the emotional landscape like never before. So emotional intelligence, it's a critical factor in determining leadership effectiveness. Leaders who prioritize and develop their own EI skills, they not only enhance their personal leadership capabilities, but they also positively influence the well-being and the performance of their teams and the overall success of the organization. The other thing that I would pop in there as well is that most companies still are not at a place where emotional intelligence development for leaders is a part of training. There's still what I see frequently a presumption that a leader is already going to know how to be emotionally intelligent, which is not always the case. And then again, just as a reminder, those key components of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. So what would you name as some of the benefits of developing emotional intelligence in leadership?
I think you get a better understanding of what your employees are actually looking for in their career, where they want to go, and maybe even determine that the position they're in isn't the best fit. And there's actually another position where they can actually take all of their strong points and be more efficient, more productive, and satisfied. I read a really good book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and the book was decent. It's small, it's a fast read, but it has exercises you can do. And I've always tried to be cognizant about my emotional intelligence because I've always felt that that is one area in my leadership that I could always improve, just because no two humans are alike. And I think it's one area that requires that continued cultivation, because you're always supervising different kinds of people from different walks of life with different attitudes, different moods, different characteristics, and different traits. So yeah, that's my addition.
Awesome. Hey, can you drop the title of that book in the chat? I'll be sure and include it in the show notes when I get this posted on YouTube.
Dean, I agree with you. Definitely, just having people in the right person in the right place makes such a difference. And the person being self-aware, which I know that's what was a big topic, last week. I got to listen to the replay because I couldn't come, but just the person being self-aware, but then also manager being self-aware, or just really awareness of what their team members' personal needs are and how to connect with them. We had done some work on DISC, the personality type of thing, and several months ago, I guess it was, Jill.
Yeah.
And so I mean, just learning not only about myself as a person, but how to communicate with somebody else who is a different type of personality than I am.
Yeah.
Too. So I mean, including emotional intelligence with that. So yeah.
Yeah. I actually got to present kind of a condensed version of the Cracking the Communication Code workshop with the DISC training to the Senior Services Network meeting in Salem.
Awesome.
Yeah. Those are so great points. Just the importance of us being aware of who we are, the awareness of the people that are around us, what is going to bring them value, what is going to bring them joy and fulfillment. Because if they're not joyful and fulfilled, that's what leads to burnout. That's where we're starting to see some of these problems, is people not knowing enough about themselves, and leaders not being able to have the emotional intelligence to say, maybe this isn't the best fit for you. Let's find something different. It also, some of the other benefits, higher levels of employee engagement, greater adaptability in the face of change and uncertainty, which is something that we're experiencing like never before. The pace of change in organizations is mind-blowing to me. I've frequently seen leaders who are implementing something. It's a quick change. We're going to do it. There's not a lot of discussion about it. And then if it doesn't work, then they're quickly looking for what's next. And there's this expectation, but what it's created is this anxiety because nobody's ever certain, like, what's going to be different today. That's what that much change is doing in our organizations. But if you have an emotionally intelligent leader, they're going to be able to deal with change in a healthy way on their own, and they're going to be able to lead their team through that change.
One of the last articles I read stated that ambiguity was a greater cause of turnover than pay. So yeah, there needs to be certainty in the workplace. One of the things I always try to practice is, if you're going to implement a change, it's almost never going to work when you just throw a change on your team. You need to include the team and then roll out the change so the team was involved, because people will support and defend what they create.
Yes.
But if they're not part of the creation process, they're not going to believe in it. And when you have a team that supports and defends a change because they are involved, it gives the entire team a built-in accountability that you can't get by just telling them they need to have accountability, because it's just policy. Just
Right.
do it. It's your job.
Yeah, that's really good, Dean. Thanks for sharing that. Do you have an example of how you've managed change in your organization?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. I remember when I was pastoring, we took a church that was very old. At the time, it was 55 years old, had been very established and pretty set, but also declining. And so we were brought in to kind of to turn things around. And within we'd been there about 3 years, and we knew that we needed to change the name. It came down to I had invited one of my neighbors. I was like, hey, would you like to come to church with me? And she goes, oh, what church do you go to? And I told her, and she goes, oh, that church. I've been to that church. I would never go to that church. And at that point, I went back and I said, we need to do something different, because we were different. Internally, we were different, but the outside packaging wasn't. And so leading the congregation through that change, it took about 6 months to get to a point where we were ready to start initiating the change, and allowing people to mourn through that, to be a part of, and to understand. The biggest thing was understanding why were we doing this? It's great that you were comfortable and that you loved the name of the church and that you didn't want that to change, and it had such a special place in your heart. It can always have a special place in your heart, but if we're truly going to be the organization, regardless of industry, that we're supposed to be, then we need to make these changes. So,
And like you said, they needed to know why, and the why removes ambiguity.
yes, absolutely.
So when there's no why, there's always going to be uncertainty.
Yeah. And the why needs to it needs to be beyond, it's the right thing to do for our finances. It needs to connect to people's hearts or to their minds. It has to either make sense, or it has to trigger an emotional response for them to buy in. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about some strategies for developing emotional intelligence. First of all, there's personal development. We've talked about this. Encourage yourself. I encourage leaders to engage in self-assessment and continuous learning. Dean mentioned that book. I'm excited to write that into the notes. There's also some other ones. Leadership, The Power of Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. He also wrote a book called Primal Leadership, Realizing the Power of Emotional Intelligence. If you really want to dig deep into your heart and develop a strong sense of emotional intelligence, I would recommend Dare to Lead, Brave Work, Tough Conversations, Whole Hearts by Brené Brown. Any other books?
Read that.
Yeah.
Brené Brown, I read that book. That's a good book. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, emotional intelligence validates the fact that regardless of our position in an organization, we're people. We have hearts, we have minds. If somebody is unhappy with me, that impacts me, even if I am the leader. Not that I don't let my identity become wrapped up in who I am as a leader. Leaders shouldn't do that. But it still impacts who we are and the work that we're doing. Okay. And then there are opportunities to implement leadership training programs, implement programs specifically focused on developing those skills, cracking the communication code for one, learning how we communicate with each other, learning more about ourselves by learning what our personality is and the personality of those around us. And when we're doing those, it's a good idea to incorporate role playing and different exercises that are going to focus on continuing to develop those skills. Give people a safe place to try out what they're learning, and making sure that the facilitator is giving them positive feedback and also structured guidance, that it's not just going to be like, oh, good job, yay, but giving them constructive feedback as well. When people feel safe in trying these things out, it gives them more confidence in actually taking what they've learned and then implementing that into their everyday life. Foster a culture of open communication. Create an environment where leaders and team members feel comfortable expressing their emotions. And again, encourage constructive feedback and active listening. There's been some conversations about psychological safety, making sure that you have a safe workplace. Well, a safe workplace means that I can come and I can share with you how your actions made me feel. As a leader, I want somebody, again, part of my personality is I'm not as attentive to feelings as other people, as other personalities. I got one of those. And so in doing that, there's times where I might miss something. I might have done something, and the way that it impacted somebody, the way that it had a coworker, how it made them feel, I need them to come and tell me that. If I'm a leader that people can't come and approach, then again, it just becomes a very structured organization. There's not the safety and all of the, for the most part, all the core values and the things that get spread out all over the walls about what a great company we are and what a fabulous culture we have really gets thrown out the door because it's not reinforced. And then mentorship and coaching. Pair leaders with mentors or coaches who can provide guidance on emotional intelligence development. Again, it might be that you bring somebody in for a seminar. It might be that you have a consultant or a coach who's available to help mentor your team through that, through some one-on-one sessions. It might be through reading books. Some of my greatest mentors have been authors of books that I've read, but making sure that is an opportunity available to people in how that they're going to be growing in their emotional intelligence. And of course, regular feedback and goal setting for improvement. So let's talk about some of the challenges though. There are definitely obstacles that individuals might face when they're working on enhancing their emotional intelligence. First of all, self-reflection resistance. Some individuals may resist taking a look at themselves and may find it uncomfortable to dive into their own emotions. My father-in-law, he could not talk about an emotion if his life depended on it. He was a loving man. He was a great man, but they just did not talk about feelings. And so there's going to be some times where people are like, I don't know that I want to go into that. They're not comfortable with it. It's not something that they've done very often. So if we can encourage them to do it gradually and also with support, it might start out, they might feel uncomfortable with talking with somebody, but pairing them with somebody who's very comfortable with talking about emotions then gives them that opportunity to feel safe and to be able to accurately look into who they are and their own self-reflection. If they're not comfortable talking to somebody, then encouraging them to journal. The second challenge that we face when it comes to developing emotional intelligence is overcoming habits and patterns. We are creatures of habit. Breaking entrenched habits and emotional patterns can be challenging because they typically become ingrained over time. So if we put in consistent effort and patience, that's the key. Developing new habits takes time. I was listening to a conversation, a podcast about habits. I think it was by Patrick Lencioni. He was talking about habits. You know, so frequently when we start the new year, we have these bold and ambitious goals, and we have these bold resolutions, and we start working towards them. Like, oh, I'm going to lose 20 pounds in the next 6 weeks. And so I'm only going to eat 1,000 calories a day. Like, that's not realistic. That is such a drastic change. When we think about making changes to our habits and to our behaviors, it's taking tiny steps. It's starting out small. I'm going to walk 5,000 steps today. I'm going to walk 5,000 steps a day for the next 3 weeks. And then I hit that goal. Okay, I can increase this now. This becomes a habit, and it becomes ingrained in who I am. It's just natural. Okay, now I'm going to up it to 8,000 steps or whatever, but it's a gradual increase. And that's how we most effectively can change our habits. Any other ideas that you have on how to change habits?
I think that when you're starting a new habit or starting a new um, series of events, whatever you want to call it, I think that um, being there in the moment is important. A lot of people aren't. I mean, they're there and they're like, okay, I'm gonna exercise for 20 minutes, but their mind is already, as soon as they get to the office, I got to talk to John, I got to talk to Susan, I got to do this. And if you're there in the moment, then it becomes more realistically a part of your being and your sense of it being important to you. I know that when you were talking about reflecting on self being kind of a opposition for emotional intelligence growth, I think being there in the moment is also one, because so many times leaders will go out on the floor and let's say, you know, they're going to talk to the 5 people they supervise, and that's their goal. Okay, I'm going to talk to Bill, I'm going to talk to Larry, you know, I'm going to talk to Joyce. And, you know, they say kind of the same things. Hey, how are you? How's it going today? How's your work? Got anything that you might need help with? But it becomes like a checklist.
Yeah.
And they're not there in the moment. They're not reading the person. They're not listening to their cadence. They're not really able to see if the person is legitimately happy or if they're just going through the motions. So I think being there in the moment helps with not only forming new habits, but also a higher level of EQ, or what did you call EI? Some people call it EQ, some people call it EI. So emotional intelligence. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Good. Good, good. All right.
So Jill, I put in the chat, there's a book, and it's been a while since I've read it, so I don't remember specifics, but Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Uh-huh.
And so I remember that having some good ideas. But Dean, to what you were talking about with reading the person, you know, that's one thing Carol and I do, trying to meet people face to face, because, you know, people carry themselves a certain way, or they have a certain look on their face, or they may roll their eyes at what you say or whatever. So I mean, just being aware, like you said, and being present, you know, and giving that person your full attention and listen more than talk. So yeah.
That's really good. It's really, really good. Another thing that we deal with sometimes, another challenge, is a fear of vulnerability. I remember when I was a brand new leader and I was so scared to let people know that I didn't know what I was doing. You know, what if then I could never get back the respect? What if I could never get them to follow anything because I shared with them an insecurity that I had, or they found out that I didn't know this piece? You know, when I got into the operations and hospice, there were pieces that I didn't know. And just that being vulnerable enough to say, I don't know that. Expressing vulnerability, it is a crucial aspect of emotional intelligence. There is nobody who knows everything. And what I've heard and what I've championed more and more is leaders who understand that they don't have to be the smartest person in the room. They will always be the leader, but to surround themselves with others who have knowledge and who have expertise, it actually increases the level of respect in the room when you say, I don't have that answer, but I know who the expert is. And either I'm going to get the information from them or they're here in the room, so I'm going to hand over the meeting to them, whatever. Being vulnerable, it is scary, but it is really what breaks down the barriers of making sure that our people know that we're people just like them. So if we foster a supportive and inclusive culture where vulnerability is seen as a strength, leading by example, we encourage team members to open up about their feelings. Does that mean that we share everything? Absolutely not. We don't have to talk about what, we don't have to share every single detail about and every single feeling. But when it's appropriate, and again, this falls in line with emotional intelligence, when it's appropriate to be able to be vulnerable enough and say, you know what, I'm struggling with this too. If an organization is going through change and there might be some glitches like with technology, and there's those IT tech challenges and people are frustrated and they come in and they're talking to you and they're like, oh, I'm so mad. I just want to throw this phone out the door. This isn't working. Why are we doing this? Allowing them that moment of being able to vent and then being able to say, you know what, I'm frustrated too. The other day, I couldn't figure this out to save my life, and then providing a solution on what you did and how you manage that. That's also part of being vulnerable, is sharing what you're feeling, and then what are you planning to do about it? Does that make sense? Another piece is time constraints. Busy schedules, demanding workloads, it makes it challenging for individuals to develop time to developing emotional intelligence. Like, when am I supposed to find the time to sit and read a book? I'm running a business. Who's got time to sit and read a book about how to be an emotionally intelligent person? I don't have time for that. If I'm not working the 70 hours for my job, then I'm at home and I've got to clean my house and I'm making meals and I'm, doing the other things outside of my life because everybody's talking about work-life balance. When am I supposed to find the time to do that? If we can build this in as a natural rhythm, finding the time, whether it be listening to a podcast while you're commuting, whether it be reading a book rather than scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever at the end of the day or at the beginning of your day. Even just setting in your calendar. One of the things when I'm working with a client, especially with just one-on-one coaching, is I tell them, make your dream week. What would your week look like if you were living your dream? And part of that includes having that time for whatever activity you're going to have for that personal development. Even if you just do on a daily basis short mindfulness exercises, taking a moment of self-reflection. One of the things that a good friend of mine does, he takes his meetings are walking meetings. So if he is meeting with staff, then they're going to go and they're going to walk around the block. And the great thing is that provides a level of confidentiality. Like, everybody in the office isn't hearing their conversation or, watching facial expressions, trying to read lips. It gets people out. It gets them that fresh air. And even people I've done from time to time where rather than having a Zoom call, it's a phone call and I'm going to take a walk around my block. Or setting aside some time for learning that's going to make a significant impact and then implementing those things. And then finally, the last couple of obstacles is lack of feedback. Without constructive feedback, individuals, they'll struggle to identify areas where they need to improve. I mean, I'm going to be my biggest cheerleader. I'm going to be my biggest fan. I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I've got this. Look at me mastering that skill. So good. I'm so emotionally intelligent. I need to have feedback. We all need people to say, stepping back a little bit and being a little bit more objective, here's something that I've noticed. And so if you encourage a culture of feedback in your organization, maybe you have a suggestion box where they can anonymously put in a feedback slip for you. And then regular check-ins with mentors or coaches or peers also provides that valuable insight and guidance. Anything else that you want to add to that? Oh my gosh, it's 12:30 already. Oof.
That's with the feedback, it definitely needs to be specific. And it's a good idea possibly to have resources to guide the person to. A company I worked for, that I was in a manager position but had never worked for that particular company. I was wanted to know, it's like, can you give me feedback, or is there any kind of thing that you could point me towards that would help me do my job better as a manager based on what the company thought.
Yeah.
And no, you've been a manager for a while and at another place, you should be okay. And but they actually offered new pharmacists like a training program with a book and everything, and they provided training like that to pharmacy students who are about to graduate and they would come to work for the company or whatever, but it's like, just get out there and do your thing, and it's like, but if it wasn't right, I heard about it. So I don't know. Yeah, well, but then again, the feedback was not specific. It's like, you got to be better at this, but they weren't specific about what about that, or there's complaints, or and not getting all that information I needed to make a change. So yeah.
That's good. Thank you. Thanks for adding that. Well, I want to talk, first of all, next week we're going to meet. And like I said, Angie Gray is going to be a guest. We're going to talk about leadership. Her and I have had some great conversations. And she says this: visionary organizations are committed to delivering a new experience for residents, providing them with elevated living and care. Obviously, she's in the senior care world. An elevated living experience is only as good as the caring and empowering interactions with nurse and healthcare leaders. I offer group training and one-on-one coaching for emerging and established nurse leaders. So again, she's just somebody I've really enjoyed getting to know, and I'm excited about our conversation that we're going to have next week. I invite you to come, and of course, invite anybody else that you would like. And I also wanted to let you know, we talked about creating new habits and the power of reaching goals. And, here we are, it's February 1st. Statistics show that 80% of people have already given up on their New Year's resolutions that they made just 31 days ago. And so I'm starting a mastermind group. You might have gotten an email about it. I'm starting a group, and it is about how we can revolutionize goals. And it's going to be 8 weeks. We're going to be meeting for 8 weeks. And also there'll be some one-on-one. It's a group coaching program. But if you want more information about that, let me know, and I will shoot you all the details, and we can set up a time to see if that would be a right next step for you. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. I hope that things go well. As if there's ever anything that I can do to be of assistance for you, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you.
meeting you, Irene.
Nice meeting you, Dean. We'll connect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. I have your email address.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
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 Bye.